r/ask Reddit. People who grew up with strict parents. What was their most unreasonable rule? Have a friend who isn't allowed to go out if he's already had too much fun this weekend. That's the only reason. They think he'll become corrupted if he has too much fun and that he won't know how to work. He's in college. How was your weekend? Oh, really boring. Didn't have any fun. Victory. This actually hits home for me a bit. I was raised that way and now in my adult life I find myself not having fun almost on purpose. I was not allowed to talk to boys. One Christmas Eve day, I was doing last minute shopping in the downtown of our little town. I ran into two male friends from my German class and we talked for several minutes and wished each other a Merry Christmas. Oh, I was 15 at the time. My older sister drove by and saw me. Told my parents I was hanging out with boys. When I walked in the house both my parents were waiting and the yelling began. Some Christmas Eve. Sneak. My sisters do this shit. I'll be in my room and hear mom. X just insulted me. Do something. My sisters are 21 and 19. I wasn't allowed to say I died on Mario. I lost one of my chances to succeed. I was hoping I'd see more of this on this thread and less instances of abuse. Son, your grandpa lost one of his chances to succeed. I had a ton. I think the most unreasonable was that we, my siblings and I, weren't allowed to know where we were going during car rides. If we'd ask we were told business, and figure it out we were going to the store, etc. Only after we arrived to our destination. This lasted until I moved out. Another was asking for permission to use the bathroom every time. This didn't last as long. My best friend growing up had the thing about not asking where we were going or really any question at all. Her parents didn't like being asked questions so you had to avoid it at all costs. You also weren't allowed to drink with your meals. It was strange because we always get drinks with our food in my family. It's hard for me to eat without drinking cause my mouth and throats get dry and hurt and I would basically be choking, but you couldn't get a drink of water until after you were finished eating. If you said you were done to get something to drink and then wanted more food they would say no, you had your drink, now you can't eat anymore. It was very odd, I really don't understand it. I avoided meals there as much as possible. Edit. For those who keep bringing it up. No, their family was not weirdly religious and no, it was not about weight or health. Everyone was healthy and of normal weight. They just didn't allow you to drink with your food. I never heard them explain why. Also, we were not little kids who couldn't balance eating and drinking at the same time. We were like 12 and her older siblings were 14, 17 and this went on for years. Last time I ate there I was 18 and that was still the rule. Drinking with meals makes it easier to eat more and there are diets for people who are under clinical weight loss regimes that involves not drinking with a meal or for a half hour or so afterwards. If your friend struggled with their weight, you may have gotten some splash damage from the rules being applied to them. I changed my mind. I guess my parents weren't so bad at it. Wow. Went for a hike today out of cell service and returned to 9k karma and 30 plus comments. Since a couple people asked what I was going to say, it sounds pretty lame now compared to the rest of this thread, but I'll explain a few. We weren't allowed to swim in rivers. We were rarely allowed to go to friends' houses unless the parents knew each other. We weren't allowed to go anywhere on our own until we could drive, which was 18 for me, and just the usual strict parent pushing to get all A's. My parents are amazing. I never realize until I venture into threads like these. I thought my family was pretty nuts growing up, but you never realize until you make your way into the world. Some true nutters out there. No trends or passing fads. Pokemon banned. Barbies banned. Beanie Babies banned. PlayStation Gamma Boys banned. Anything particularly fashionable or popular regardless of actual merit was met with derision and we'd be mocked for even suggesting interest. We were achingly frumpy kids with interests and cultural references, or lack thereof, that isolated us from our peers and they wondered why each of us were bullied. Pretty sure the verdict is in on Barbie and PlayStation. They aren't fads. Since OP was young enough that PlayStation Gamma Boys were coming out when OP was young, the verdict was in on Barbie decades before OP was born. My parents were slack. My best friend's parents were so strict, she would escape to my house for freedom. 12th grade, prom. Her parents allowed her to go to prom but said she wasn't allowed to dance. We all went to prom. had fun dancing, until she saw her parents standing at the back watching. She then moved out for university. After her first year, she came home to work for the summer. She had been on her own for a year and supporting herself, and her parents gave her a 9 p.m. curfew. She spent a lot of time at my house that summer. She was married by the next summer and didn't have to deal with it. Edit. This is a small selection of the intense upbringing my friend went through. Tiny even. How the hell are you gonna give an adult with a job a curfew, let alone a 9 p.m. curfew? They're insane. Sounds like a really good way to chase your kids into a marriage and into someone else's arms though. I had a friend who wasn't allowed to sit on the couch, no matter the circumstances. That was the first time I realized something was really wrong in his house. The kicker, it was a crappy couch, so it's not like he was going to ruin it. Edit. Responding to a gazillion people at once. To the folks looking for logic, you'll find none. No, the parents weren't saving the couch for company. No, the kids didn't have a history of damaging the couch. No, the kids weren't little troublemakers, they were surprisingly well-behaved teens. Surprising because of how they were raised. This is about control, not logic. Domestic abuse is always about exerting control. Don't let anyone try to convince you otherwise. Even after writing a note about child abuse, I'm still getting jokes about how my friend must be a dog. Thanks, Reddit. My grandfather did that. All my siblings had to sit on the wood floor. I think he had the same couch for 30 plus years. He also didn't allow us to take showers or baths because they wasted water, so we would crouch miserably in an empty tub and scoop handfuls of water over ourselves to clean, even in the middle of winter. As a child who took half an hour long showers every single day, I am surprised this didn't happen to me. For every minute I was late coming in from curfew, I got grounded a week. I once spent 10 weeks grounded due to a sobriety checkpoint. Whoa. For me it was every minute late is a minute earlier the next day. Mine is logical. Yours is insane. That actually does seem logical. It sets up the concept of consequence very well. Until what age did this go on, if you don't mind me asking? Dad was a narcissist. Biggest rule in the house was not to make any noise around him. If he was home, the whole house got quiet and tense. Even my mom used to eat her cereal in the bedroom because she'd get in trouble for chewing crunchy food. Now she's long rid of him and married to a way better guy, but she still apologizes for eating crackers. My ex-husband was like this. Unreasonable demands on my time and access to my body. I wasn't allowed to make my art because it made noise when I worked and it might be messy. Never allowed to play video games, but had to be there to watch him play. If I didn't behave, I would not be allowed to eat. Stupid shit. He told me toward the end of our marriage that if I quit my job and did exactly what he told me to do all the time, I wouldn't be suicidal and depressed. So for our first wedding anniversary, I had him served with divorce papers. I wasn't allowed to shrug or say I don't know if anything tech related went wrong. It was assumed that I broke it on purpose, even if the only reason anyone knew it was broken is because I was trying to fix it. Birthday parties were a no-go. Christmas was a no-go. Any party whatsoever was a no-go. What if you didn't know something? How do you respond? Not me, I wasn't there. etc. I have two men to name growing up in an Asian household, but the one that was the most embarrassing was I was not allowed to shave my legs or armpits, and I hit puberty at an early age. So I had really hairy armpits and legs and was forced to wear shorts to gym class. I was so embarrassed about my legs that I would wear shorts with opaque pantyhose, which just made the whole situation worse and was the butt of many jokes in middle school. My mom has apologized thousands of times since, but it still brings back crappy memories. Freshman year of high school, I had one of those wispy poustaches that all teenage boys have. My mother refused to let me shave. I got called everything from pedo stash to dirty Sanchez 15 years later. The joke's on her. I have a long ass Viking beard and she constantly bitches at me to shave. Sorry mum, can't, not allowed. Mayo, my parents were the same, so I used to do it with the scissors until they relented. Was forced to drop out of school in the 5th grade because my grandmother believed that most people have no souls and were demon possessed. She said that the world was unsafe to roam freely because Satan was trying to corrupt God's children. This led to a very sheltered life and very silly things like having to pray over every individual item that entered the house. Food, toiletries, dish soap, you name it. I'd get woken up at 2 AM to be screamed at for 3+ hours over something God had told her that I did wrong. So yeah, I guess the most unreasonable rule I grew up with was not being allowed to leave the house. Edit. Okay, I get it. Apparently my life was Binding of Isaac storyline. This is mental illness that latched onto religion. Happens a lot. Sorry you had to live like that. There were a lot, but the most ridiculous one to me was they didn't want me volunteering during high school. I was visiting the elderly and they said it was too dangerous to be around strangers like that and the time was taking away from my studies. Most extracurriculars I wanted to do they had a huge problem with, but it didn't hit me how absurd it was until it was about senior citizens. The ironic thing is those things look great on college applications. It was less about that and more about keeping me isolated from the outside as much as possible. I just didn't fully get it until later. If I wasn't in school I had to be in the house, cleaning or doing home improvement projects. Anything that took away from that they always had some excuse as to why it was ultimately bad for me. Getting pissed at me for hanging around old people was just one of the more laughable examples. My mom was insanely controlling about food. Weird rules were in place like 1 slice of lunch meat per sandwich. No one but her was allowed to cook. She'd make one giant batch of spaghetti or something and we'd have leftovers for days. So she only had to make dinner twice a week. She did not work or anything. Just didn't like cooking every day. Breakfast was cold cereal and you'd only be allowed a small bowl with just enough milk to moisten it. Occasionally she'd bake something she called corn toasties, which was simply cornbread baked in a sheet pan. She'd cut them into squares and fill the freezer with them and we could have one of those for breakfast as an alternative. Once when I was 14 I bought a pack of hot dogs at the store, snuck them home, and lit the grill. I was almost done cooking them when she came out screaming about fire hazards and swatted the plate out of my hand. She had been making spaghetti. What an ungrateful little bastard I was. So then she orders a pizza for the rest of my family, wraps individual servings of spaghetti in freezer paper, and puts them away. She tells me that I will be eating nothing else until it's all gone. Took about 2 months to choke it all down. Went without eating a lot of days. I was also grounded for over a year. But I sure learned a lot about consequences. All because you wanted a hot dog? Some of these stories are more abuse than being strict. What the duck? Yes, my mom and dad would go ape if someone had a snack or something. We were teen boys and it's food. Jeez. My parents would get angry if we had a friend over and they were hungry or thirsty. Why can't they eat at their own house? Was common. My instruction to my kids' friends is, if I let you in the door, then you're part of the family. Here's the fridge. Here's where the glass is. Plates, etc. If you're hungry, don't wait to be asked. It's just food. Eat it. But as a member of the family you're also expected to clean up after yourself. 2. LOL. They always told my kids I was the coolest dad. I'd hate anyone to feel what I felt growing up in my own house. They all still keep in touch via Facebook, etc. Edit. Oh my gosh. I don't think I've ever said anything on here that ever hit 100 points before. Restores your faith in families, and that's something within each of us as a kid that needs acceptance and love. Red Heart. Edit Junior. Oh my goshy gosh. Someone gave me Reddit gold. Gee thanks. Females of the family must cook and clean on holidays while males watch TV. Must bus males' plates every night. No visiting friends' houses, no friends over at our house all the way through high school. Hair cannot be cut at or above shoulder. 7 PM bedtime. Not curfew. Bedtime. Through junior high. Strictly enforced. Needless to say, I rebelled strong and hard. Upvote for the rebelling part. I'm so very sorry. No dating till marriage. Suadu. Marry, and then date. My parents were pretty slack on everything except one thing: no video games console ever, and no online games on the computer because that's how you get virus and make the computer run slow. So I was playing my Morg when they were sleeping. In a hidden file, in a file, in another file, in another file, and I was changing the appearance of every file icon. And this is how you reverse your child's sleep schedule and teach them to be sneaky. We could not listen to music with guitars in it. I will never forget the day my brother was listening to Sabbath Bloody Sabbath and my father took the radio and threw it through the window. Spent my childhood listening to Richard Marx and Michael Bolton. Thanks Dad. Specifically electric guitar. Or acoustic as well, if the latter. Why aren't stringed instruments at all? Mandolins are the devil. I get the feeling it was rock and roll type music. It was religiously based idiocy and this was the 80s right in the middle of the Satanist scare. My father was very strict. I wasn't allowed to have alone time with my mother. He beat the shit out of me constantly. But the oddest thing that still bugs me to this day is that he would burn all my things as punishment. And I get it. Seeing my toys and valuables burning sucked, and I probably learned some lessons. But he not only burned toys, he would burn everything. Every year or so for school we would go to Meijer and buy me new school clothes and shoes. He would also burn those, like sometimes days after he bought them. At 8 years old I remember thinking, you now have to buy me more clothes. But that wasn't the point I suppose. He once took me to the Palace of Auburn Hills in Detroit to see the Globetrotters one year and during the night he bought me a Globetrotters basketball and jersey. We had a fun night. The very next day, I had left something on the floor in my room and his punishment, among other things, was to burn the basketball and jersey he bought for like $150 less than 24 hours earlier. It just never made sense to me. My friends would joke about it all throughout middle and high school. Sounds more like mental illness than strict parenting. Seriously, one of the psychopathic answers on here. Sorry you had to live with that. This blew my mind. You can't have privacy, literally quoted from my dad. My dad used to threaten me by saying he would take my room's door off if I kept closing it. I didn't know that was possible until he eventually did. I'd sit in my room naked and jack off all day until he gave it back. Oh god, I wasn't allowed to go out, like ever. If I was gonna hang out with someone it had to be on the weekend, planned at least a week ahead. And my parents had to meet their parents and drive me there. They would come get me before the sun went down. Not a rule. But if I got up to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night or was reading because I couldn't sleep, my mom would come screaming up the stairs, "Why are you up?" and sometimes hit me. I wasn't allowed to close the door in my room. There's more, but that's what I can think of right now. Mostly my mother would just yell about everything. My parents actually removed the door from my room when I was like 16. I got it back when I started sleeping naked. Same, only I reinstalled the door and my dad blew it down like the big bad wolf because it was his door. So I took back his empty beer cans and used that money to buy a cheap door from the hardware store. He let me keep that one to show me the value of $1. I'm still not sure what to make of that one. 30 minutes of internet time a day and 99% of the time that was supervised, as in mom looking over my shoulder and commenting on conversations we had webbed. RIP. And when they weren't home, they would literally lock the keyboard in a toolbox. My sis and I could never have friends stay over because the house is a mess. No amount of cleaning satisfied mom, because the real reason was she wanted to be able to fight with my dad at will. Oh god, same. Couldn't have friends over because the house is a mess. Those exact same words. I wonder whose fault that was. Then when I tried to clean it was that doesn't go there, or stop moving my stuff. My mom was very strict about the ratings of movies and video games. One year for Christmas a relative gave me a copy of Star Wars: Shadows of the Empire for the Nintendo 64. It was a T14 rated game and I wouldn't be turning 13 for another 4 weeks. My mom had my dad drive me to Toys R Us to return the game. We walked into the store and over to the games and he had me pick out an E for everyone rated game. We proceeded to check out and as we went to the car he handed me not only the new game but the game we were supposed to have returned to buy it as well and told me not to let her catch me playing it. That guy deserves a high five. I was not allowed to watch Pokemon because it taught evolution. Haha. My brother couldn't watch it because Pokemon equals pocket monsters, which is a sneaky word for demons. Even if I'm wrong, I'm right. This caused a lot of confusion on my part and rage on theirs. I got my head knocked through a cabinet door for eating a grape wrong. And even more trouble when I cried. Edit. Thanks dude. For the gold. I cheesed too dang hard. In short, yes, I still see my parents regularly. I'm at their house with my daughter. Yes, I've always known they were kinda ducked off in the brain. I've learned to take no shit though. My husband has been there since we were 16, and I attribute my take no shitness to him. Wait, there must be more. The story of your head being knocked through a cabinet because you ate grapes wrong. How did you manage to eat grapes so wrong to get such a harsh punishment? Unfortunately there's not. I was standing in the kitchen with my sister and her friend. Dad came in and saw me peeling the skin off of my grape. Immediately upon seeing his face, I knew it was coming. He screamed at me to eat my food right. I guess he meant to slap me, but I turned into the hit and he caught my forehead, sending my head through the cabinet. I didn't eat grapes for a very long time. My mom wouldn't let me have any female friends growing up. Joke's on her, I'm gay. Hahaha, I'm a lesbian. I've been out and dating since I was like 13. But my mom spent most of my teen years in denial. So I wasn't allowed to spend time with boys alone or have them sleep over. But girls were fine. I have a lesbian friend that I used to spend a lot of time with before she got married. One evening I was hanging out with her in her bedroom and her dad called her upstairs. I don't think you should have boys in your bedroom, dad, in gayo. Okay, well never mind then. Indian parents. I could stay at a sleepover until 2 AM, but couldn't actually sleep at that person's house, lol. I wasn't allowed to cross any streets until middle school. Thus, my best friends were the ones who lived on the same block as me. We couldn't go sledding during the winter, or any other season, obviously, because my mom was a neat freak and didn't want snow slogged into the garage. So, no snow playing of any kind. Really, never built a snowman. Did go sledding when I was an adult. It's pretty great. All of our clothes in our closet had to be arranged by color, descending in order by shade. So, for example, midnight blue at one end of the blue section, and Tahil blue at the other. There was a system in place for colors, too, so if the yellows were by the purples, for example, the red be hell to pay. No shoes on in the house under any circumstances. Was super uncomfortable when my brother's friend, who had prosthetic legs and always had shoes on, came over and didn't take his shoes off. Mum got really mad and confronted him. No Legos or puzzles allowed, as they make messes and look like disorder. I ducking love puzzles as an adult. One of my favorite hobbies. What happened to the friend with prosthetic legs? Did your mom get embarrassed or? My mom let it go the first time because he was only in the kitchen. Then, one day, she came home from work and we were downstairs playing College Slam on SNES and she asked him, not particularly nicely, if my 12-year-old self remembers correctly, why he thought he was so special that he didn't have to take his shoes off in our house when everyone else did. He responded by lifting up his jeans and showing his Jordans resting in a pair of fake legs and said, "I'm sorry, Mom, if I take them off, I'll have to take my legs off." 2. My mom offered a half-hearted apology and went upstairs. She never commented on it again. Edit. Thanks for the gold, stranger. I'm going to tell my mom about this next time we talk. It'll go really well. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.